As parents, you already know you have at least a few dozen new photos each day, which easily adds up to thousands of photos each year. It easily can get out of hand when managing all the photos and videos of your family. If you're interested in finally managing your photos and videos to enjoy the best moments, check out Camera Roll Curator. This system is created by San Francisco-based photographer and cinematographer JJ Juma Casas. He's outlined a great workflow that you can easily adopt, even if you're not a professional photographer. Take the first steps towards better organization and preservation of your family memories by taking the Camera Roll Curator course today. Use code BYTE, BYTE, to get 15% off enrollment. Welcome to Parenthood Bites, the podcast where we explore life as a parent in tech. I'm your host, Chow, and I have over 15 years of experience in tech, and I'm also currently working as a career coach. I'm the proud mother of 3 incredible boys. In each episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share their remarkable story. You'll find their wisdom and insights both relatable and enriching, because after all, we're all in this parenting journey together. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 23 of Parenthood Bites. We're here today with Karthik Sethuramen, who lives in the Bay Area and is currently a staff engineer at Adopt. Hi Karthik.
Hi, Chow. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's finally a sunny day here. Although I hear it's going to rain again on the weekend, so it's going to suck. But, the last few days have been nice.
Yeah, it's been really crazy, right? You get a few days of sunshine and then it's like pouring rain.
Yeah, I mean, the annoying part about the rain with having a kid is just really annoying we're stuck inside the house. I mean, lately we've gotten very creative this whole winter of like finding things to do.
Yeah, you have to be, right?
Yeah.
So how many kids do you have and what are their ages?
So we just have one kid. His name is Kai, and he is 3.5, almost 4. He's going to turn 4 in May.
Oh, that's a fun age. Is he talking a lot?
Yeah, he talks a lot. Well, my wife is Chinese, and he goes to a Chinese immersion school, so he speaks Chinese and English. So he's very talkative. He's exploring a lot of different things. Yeah, it's a very fun age, but I guess also a very tiring age.
Yeah, they have so much energy.
Yeah.
So have you picked up some Chinese too?
A little bit. He's been doing this since he was like in daycare, and now he's in like a larger preschool with like 60 kids. So I've been picking up a little bit, but it's really, as he's developed more and more of a personality, he knows I don't speak Chinese. So he always gets annoyed because I think he can tell that my accent is wrong, and like I understand some of the things he says, but he always corrects me. And when he wants to do a Chinese language activity, he knows that he has to go find his mom. So it's very cute.
Oh, so he's at the age where he can differentiate, like,
Yeah.
okay, English with dad,
Mm-hmm.
Chinese with mom.
Mm-hmm.
That's really neat. So what brought you to tech and how many years were you in tech before you became a parent?
Well, I came into tech in around like 2012, 2013. In college, I studied computational biology. So I was always sort of on the boundary of computer science and like machine learning and stuff. And then for a couple of summers, I needed to make more money than doing research. So I got some tech internships. And then around 2014, when I was looking for a job after college, tech was doing really well. So I took a job as a software engineer. Yeah, and that's how I ended up here. So I guess that was like almost 10 years ago. And then I guess I was in tech for about 7, 8 years before I had a kid.
Oh, okay, so you've been working for a little bit, and then so when you had your kid, what was the parental leave like at work?
Our son was born in May of 2020. So we were all working from home because of the pandemic, but I didn't actually have that much leave. I was working for mid to late stage startup at that time. The company was like Series D, and I had 8 weeks. And my wife worked for the same company as well, and she had 12 weeks. So she had 3 months of leave, and I had 8 weeks. So I took 6 weeks right when our son was born, and then I took 2 weeks sometime later in the year.
Oh, so they gave you the option of breaking it up as you needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
nice. How was it transitioning back into work after your leave?
I think it was a very weird time because of COVID. So my wife and I were both working from home in like the second half of her pregnancy because of, all the offices got shut down. And then it was very strange to like work, but also have like, like our baby would be kind of like in his bedroom or in the living room. And
Hmm.
then my wife and I, we were living at that time in like a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, like a apartment condo sort of thing. So it was like, yeah, we were both like squished into one bedroom, and my office or like my desk was there, but it was just like a little table with a chair in it. Yeah. So we were very not well set up to work. And yeah, it was definitely very different working at that time. I think going back was fine because I had been at that company for so long. At that startup, I'd been there for like 5 years. So there was a lot of trust and it was easy to work. But it was just like, I think for me, the more of the trouble was around coordinating childcare and finding space and time to work.
Yeah, especially trying to work from home while
Hmm.
taking care of a newborn, right? Did
Hmm.
you have any other childcare at that time, or was it the two of you?
Yeah. So when our son was born, and we were both taking like those first 6 weeks off, we had some help. We had a doula, especially for like nighttime stuff. So that was super helpful. And then my wife's like extended family, like her sister and her parents, also live in the Bay Area. But again, her parents are there. They were in like their 70s, so they were also at early COVID. They were very concerned, but they did help a lot, mostly with, I would say, like supplies and food and a lot of that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, when I started to go back to work after like those first 2 months or so, my wife and I kind of split the childcare responsibilities for like the first month. And then we had a nanny. So we got a nanny around when our son was 3 months old.
So is that how you handle childcare now with the nanny?
Yeah, so we had a nanny from when he was about the same person, and actually she still spends a lot of time with him for like babysitting and stuff. We had her from when he was about 3 months old until he was about 18 months old, 18 to 20 months old, and then he went to like a daycare.
Got it. And then she still comes around to
Yeah,
babysit and things like that.
yeah.
That's nice. That's nice when you find a good nanny that's like trustworthy and
Hmm.
reliable.
Yeah, I'd say we got very lucky. I've heard of a lot of families like having to, change nannies for whatever reason, and she's really like become a sort of like a family friend of ours. So it's very, yeah, it's very helpful.
Yeah, that's nice. Because then your kid needs a while to get used to the person and like
Hmm.
them too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what is your day to day routine like now with your son?
I guess it's actually very specific. So my wife's company, her current company now, is East Coast based. So she works in the morning, like starting at around, I'd say like 6:30 to 7 California time. So I typically do a lot of the morning activities with my son. So, he wakes up around like 7, and a lot of the morning is like, getting him ready for school, preparing lunch. And then his school is like, right now, it's like annoyingly far from us. So it's like we live in the city and it's like about a 25-minute drives or train ride, whichever one we do that day. So then we usually have to leave on time to get him to school, get him in the car. Like today, I'm at my company's office. So yeah. So today, like I would, I go take the train, stop at his stop. We walk to his school. I drop him off. I walk back to the train. Then I come to downtown. Yeah. So that's like what the morning is like, and it's like pretty. It's like the sort of same ritual every day. So it's like breakfast, get ready, prepare lunch, and then his school starts at around 9 o'clock. So he's in school from 9, in preschool from 9 to roughly 4:30, and then on like some days he has like, we do after school activities with him. So we have to like, my wife does a lot of the after school stuff because because her time is shifted earlier. So after school, he has some activities. He's really into drumming now, which is great. We're like super excited for him, and like his drum classes, they call it bucketeers. So
That's
he
so
has like
cute.
actual drumsticks, but they drum on buckets, and they have like some they have a plastic bucket, which is like the big drum, and then they have like some small little things that go around it. So we have a setup like that for him at home. It's great, but it's very loud.
Yeah.
Even with a bucket, it's really loud. So he's really into, yeah. So he has drumming. I think today actually he has some sort of, I think it's called like Tinker Workshop, where they do, they make arts and crafts
Oh,
and
that's neat.
yeah. And then tomorrow he has his sports class. Yeah, so there's like some miscellaneous stuff, and then usually he's home by like 5:30, which is also when I go home, 5 to 5:30. And then the evening is like very self-contained because he doesn't nap anymore, so he's usually pretty tired. When he comes home after like school. So yeah, it's usually just like my wife and I usually we prepare dinner. There's like while we're preparing dinner, he's like sitting in the living room playing drums, and he's learned how to use. We have like the Google Assistant stuff around the house, so he's learned like how to like ask Google to play a song, and then he'll drum along to it. Yeah, it's like that, and then yeah, he's usually in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock. Yeah, so it's like a weekdays are actually very organized. I'd say weekends are much we don't really have a good schedule on the weekend. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like, okay, well, let's wake up and figure out what to do. Like when he has activities, then we like structure around that, but like weekends are like very free flowing.
Yeah, I remember when my kids were younger. Sometimes, like, we would come up with a lot of things. Sometimes we're like, gosh, it's only been an hour and the kid is getting restless. Like, what do we do? So, yeah, definitely weekends,
Yeah,
especially long weekends, I think.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, like with all the rain recently, yeah, so the weekends usually it's like we get up, we usually cook breakfast together, or we go out for something, and then it's like, okay, we have to figure out what to do for like the next 5 hours or 6 hours. And yeah, it's worse in like the last 6 months because he's just started not napping. So before, when he would nap, it'd give you like an hour break to like maybe you take a nap or you recharge. But yeah, now it's just like the whole day, which I don't mind. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's just, yeah, it's I guess there's always a new challenge.
Yeah, I remember when the kids used to nap. I was like, "Oh my gosh, an hour. What do I do at this time?" It was such a nice gift. And then they stopped napping and I was like,
Hmm.
"Okay, now I got to think about what to do with this continuous few hours."
Hmm.
Right? Before they
Hmm.
finally get tired. But then the good thing is they get tired earlier at night, right?
Yes.
Because they're awake longer.
Yeah. So I would say that's been the big plus. That was a huge plus, which is that like previously when he would nap, and he would nap for a while, he would nap for like an hour and a half or sometimes even 2 hours. Then he'd go to sleep like at 9. And it would also take him longer to go to sleep. Like we'd have to like sit with him, for like half an hour or 45 minutes. Now he's in, we read a couple of books, he's in bed, and then he's like asleep in like 15 minutes. So, there's like small, yeah, silver linings, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So, how has your work life changed since you became a parent?
It was definitely very interesting. I was at a startup when Kai was born, and I was there for like the first year or so of his like of his life, and then for the next 2 years, I was at Twitter, and yeah, like that was just switching from the startup to Twitter was so different. And now I'm back at a startup, but a very small startup, so that's also been very different. Originally, when I was at my first startup, Trifacta, he was less than a year old. A lot of the work I was doing was sort of very time flexible, and my team that I was managing at that time, they were kind of split between the US and India. And I was also like kind of up at weird hours for like formula or like feeding him or changing him. So it kind of just like all fit together, and it was very flexible. And then at Twitter, again, my teams that I was like managing and supporting were split between like the US, West Coast, East Coast, and the UK. But I would say like at Twitter, my work life balance was definitely better, but probably because I was like working less, or the expectations were different around like when I had to work and like what I had to do. And also like the teams I was working with and supporting, they were all very flexible about like when we were online, what we were doing. So that was really good. And then towards the end of Twitter with the whole Elon stuff, it became very hectic. And that's actually like one reason I didn't stay on at Twitter beyond Elon or whatever. And that was like a big consideration for me when I was leaving. I guess that must have been like a year and a half ago or a year ago. So yeah, so Kai had just, he was like 2.5, and I was like, hey, I have these sort of, my wife and I have talked about this a lot. I think we both like working, but we want to work in a way that's like flexible and where we can prioritize, our son and our family first. And that's like one of the biggest things I was looking for when I was like changing jobs. And so when I went to this sort of new startup, there's only like 6 people. I'm like one of the lead engineers. But I was really looking for like, can I be at a place where I can work, where I like what I'm doing, but like I can work on my own time, with my own expectations. And yeah, so that's how it's been. And I'd say, yeah, my wife and I still work a lot, but it's kind of like, on our own time, on our own pace. And I'd say we definitely like prioritize our family time together the most. So we don't work on like weekends. And then, yeah, throughout the day, we just like kind of work whenever we have time, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you go into the office every day?
No, that was also something I was looking for. Like at Twitter, it was kind of tough to go in because my teams were so spread out. Although I think a core when I was working on Twitter embeds the whole time, the core of that team was in the Bay Area. But yeah, it was also hard getting folks to come in, and post pandemic, like just the office was pretty dead. So I was looking for something where I could go in a few days a week. And yeah, at my current place at Dopt, folks go in typically on Tuesday and Thursday. I came in today because I didn't go in yesterday and I wanted like a change of scenery. Yeah, so I like going into the office. I think it's nice. And then I also like going in because it sort of like it gives me an excuse to like take the train with Kai in the morning, and he really loves that experience. It actually makes the morning much easier if he knows he has to like get ready and there's a schedule and the train's going to come in at a certain time, or the Muni's going to come at this time, so we have to get on the Muni. Yeah, so he loves doing that. So today I'll do like train in the morning, and then my wife will come on the train as well, and we'll pick him up in the train in the evening. So it also creates like that nice ritual.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice little routine, and he loves
Mm-hmm.
it, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. So, what is your biggest struggle or challenge with being a parent in tech?
I think for me, the biggest challenge is knowing how and sort of when to work, and what that boundary looks like between working and obviously like being there for Kai. And I think as parents, I think my wife and I both struggle with this. And I'm thinking about this because he's been pretty sick in February. The first week of February he had the flu, and then he went back to school, and then the third week of February he had strep throat. So he was yeah. So thankfully, yeah, he's gotten the booster for the flu, and so he wasn't like deathly ill or anything, but he had like a pretty bad fever and he had to stay home and take Tamiflu and whatnot for like 4 days, and then similarly with a strep throat, he was home for 4 days. I think for both of those, it's kind of like, and, I took time off and my wife took time off, and we like traded days off. And when we did have to like work, we had our nanny come in, or to babysit him for a couple of hours in the evenings. So we were able to kind of do all that, and he's fine. But I think there's always this. I think being in like a both parents working, I think I always feel a little bit guilty. Are we giving him the right amount of attention? Should we be doing something differently? I think it's very easy to compare yourself as a parent or yourself as a family with like, other families, especially now that he's going to a bigger preschool, and like the preschool, it's like pre-K through 8. So it's like a larger school, and there's like a lot of family, it's very easy to like look at your family and what you do and compare it to other families and what they do. And you're like, well, am I doing the right thing for my child? Yeah. So I'd say that's like the biggest challenge, which is trying to figure out how we can balance our lives and sort of prioritize, his well-being and his happiness, and find the right balance.
Yeah, I think like as working parents, we always go through that struggle of like, am I doing enough, and that
Mm-hmm.
parental guilt that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, we do what's best for our families, and every family situation is different, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
like kids see that, they see when we're with them, they're happy about that, and that's what they see. Because now my kids are older, so I have that conversation with them sometimes, and they're just very appreciative of like when we can spend time with them, but they don't really think much about when we can't. They learn to treasure those moments, I think. So, you mentioned your biggest challenge and struggle. What about like at Kai's current age? Is that struggle different, or like what do you struggle with at his current age?
I think at his current age, I don't think there's anything sort of Well, we struggle a lot, I'd say, with like positive discipline, trying to, because, he started testing the boundaries of what he can do, what he can't do, right? Yesterday, for example, he really wanted to watch a video with dinner. And we're pretty protective about screen time. I would say we're not like anti screen time, but he averages like less than 15 minutes of screen time every day. And he doesn't have like a dedicated iPad or anything. And he doesn't watch anything on the TV. So, it's like I would say we're very, we're anti screen time, pretty minimal on screen time, except for like if we're on a plane or something. Yeah. So yesterday, for some reason, he really, really wanted a video. And I think that's because when he was sick, he had more screen time, to like get him to eat and stuff. We'd let him watch some videos and things like that when he was sick. So he really wanted to watch a video. And I think a lot of the struggle was my wife and I were eating dinner, and his food was ready, and we were all eating like some rice and some curry and some vegetables. And he was like, I'm not going to eat unless you give me a video. And so I think a lot of the challenge was like trying to figure out how to manage his emotions, get him to talk about it, get him to pick another activity. And we did, like we were able to, talk to him about it, find a book that he wanted to read the book instead. But, he was still very sad. Like this morning when he woke up, he was like, I'm still upset that you didn't give me a video last night, even though he had eaten everything and fallen asleep, and he was very happy. So I think, yeah, just like trying to, as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, as he matures and as he starts to like understand these things and form longer emotional stories and stuff, how can we help him process and understand and not regulate, but sort of like deal with these things. Yeah, I'd say that's what we're actively working on, thinking about. But I don't think it has anything to do with like our jobs or our careers or anything.
Right. I think it's great that, you were able to reason with him and think of another activity to redirect him to. Because I think with kids, if they can get away with this, they'll think of something else next time and then something else, see what they can get away with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is something we'll all work on. But what do you do for work life balance? What's something that's worked for you?
I'd say what I do the most for work life balance is really segment my calendar and create expectations around when I'll be available and when I won't be available. So I think everybody on my team knows that I'm not available in the mornings between like 8 and 9:30, and I'm not available in the evenings between like 5 and 8, or like roughly that time. And I think also a lot of it is like setting expectations that I might have to intermittently, take days off and, figure out how to work creatively around like some of these things, like, kids getting sick. And I think what set me up for success, and, probably also what set my wife up for success, is like finding a workplace that accommodates those things. I think, we could have been in other jobs or, working for other companies where this would have been a lot less possible. But I think having a supportive team, having supportive, colleagues, being able to like sort of shift this around and being in an accommodating workspace has made all of this very easy. It's like, okay, I need to take the next 2 days off because my son has the flu. I will try to get, babysitting for him on the third day. Let's figure out like if someone can take on the work I'm doing right now and I can pick it back up in 2 days. Things like, I think just having folks who can be flexible around those things makes it very easy to prioritize a better balance. And I think, if I was working at a place that was like more rigid or wasn't as accommodating, I think my work life balance would definitely be worse.
You mentioned a lot about like looking for a workplace that's accommodating and things. Were there like some questions or anything that you asked when you were interviewing to kind of see if this was a suitable place for you?
Yeah, I think when I was interviewing, I had a few different candidates. Some of them were like very big places. Like I was like, I was interviewing like at Meta, and then I was interviewing at like some late stage startups, and then also this really early stage company where I knew the co-founders. And I think for like larger companies, it's different how you talk about these things and what you ask for. But when I was interviewing at my startup, I was very clear that I was going to have these needs. I was like, well, hey, I'm going to have to take days off. I'm going to have to sometimes work at night versus working during the day. Like I think one week my wife had to travel for work, and it was also Kai had a sort of extended holiday from his school for some reason. And then so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go stay with my parents. But I was like, I'm gonna need to like only work half a day because I don't think I can leave I can't leave Kai with my parents for like 8 hours a day and work
Right.
upstairs. So yeah, I think like just and I was very sort of upfront about these things and sort of what my expectations were. And I think the fact that I knew some of the co founders and that there was a mutual trust made this a lot easier. But I'd say, yeah, definitely for me, my sort of responsibilities and what I wanted to do as a parent and what my wife and I wanted to do as a family, what was very important for me in my job search. And I think being upfront about it with folks I might be working about really helped like sort of narrow down. And then I was like, okay, cool, this is the startup is the right fit for me.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's really good that you were upfront about it because I think a lot of times people are nervous or hesitant to do that, and I would hope that we can normalize that over
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
so that working parents can feel more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
bringing these things up. So, what are some things that you do, that help you unwind or relax?
That's tough. I wish I could say I do really helpful things. I'd say like the most helpful thing that I probably do to unwind or relax is I take long baths. We moved to a different place after my son was like 2 years old, and we were like sick of being in this tiny apartment. And it actually has a big bathtub, one that me and my son can both fit in. And so we treat it kind of like a mini pool. And so that's a good way that I could spend time with him, but I can kind of zone out. And so we'll be like in there for like an hour, and it's like a good way for him to get a bath time and cleaned up, kind of like if you went to a swimming pool and then you like shower afterwards, right? And then yeah, so I'd say like taking long baths is extremely rewarding. Sometimes by myself, sometimes playing around with him if he's around. And then otherwise, I'd say I try really hard to disconnect. It's like tough with like a laptop and a phone and stuff. But yeah, I try to be not too active on like social media, not consume too much stuff, and then like spend more time offline also helps a little bit. And then yeah, recently, as Kai has gotten older, we've also been doing on the weekends a lot more like hiking and like sort of urban nature exploring stuff, and that's also been super great because that's something I love to do. When he was a younger kid, I would like wear him around, and I'd like walk around for like a few miles every other day. Then as he got older, it was harder, and now he's gotten to the stage where he's okay with doing some of it. So like the good part is like he's okay going up the hills and going to the place, and then he'll play, and then I have to like carry him back. So I'll like carry him like the mile and a half or 2 miles back on my head. But going there, he's very happy about it. So yeah, so that's also been super rewarding.
But he must enjoy the walk down when you carry him too, right? So
Yeah,
he can see a
exactly.
lot of things.
Yes, especially I think like when we moved to being sort of in the Twin Peaks area in between the hills. There's like lots of different places to go, lots of big parks. So yeah, he really loves like going to these new parks, doing new activities, seeing new parts of the city. Yeah, and that's also very rewarding because just like walking with him and talking and stuff, it's like very relaxing.
And that's good because then it also makes it organically that he's not looking at the screen or wanting to
Hmm.
look at the screen,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Awesome. So the last question I like to ask is just what's something you would tell someone who's planning to have kids or something you wish you knew before you had your son?
I'd say for my wife and I, sort of some of the biggest challenges have been really around having good support for Kai and for us. We have a lot of support from my wife's family, who's close, and my parents are also very supportive, but they're in Texas, so it's a little bit harder. But my wife's parents are also a little bit older. So it's like just having a lot of support and having a community or having a village or whatever you want to call it is like super useful. And I think for me, thinking back, that was pretty hard on both of us. Like for Kai's like first year and a half to 2 years, it's gotten a lot better. But the first 2 years, because it was so COVID intensive, and we were like testing everybody who came to visit him, and we were worried about like every little sneeze, and that was just tough. And now it's much better. He's older. We spend a lot of time with my family when we fly. Like even though they live in Texas, I think he saw them like for 4 weeks last year. on like many different trips. And then, yeah, we see my wife's family every week or every couple of weeks. I think that's been really good. And yeah, we have a good sort of support network and friend network. But that's also as a result of like post COVID stuff, because during COVID, a lot of our friends like left and they weren't in the city anymore, but now people are coming back. Just having an understanding kind of the village behind you and the folks who will be there to spend time with you and your child and support you. And I think support is kind of a weird word because I don't think for me at least, it wasn't really like I need somebody to watch Kai, but it's more like I want to be able to hang out with folks while Kai is around, or I want to be able to like have folks come over and we like and Kai is playing, and maybe if they have children, their children are playing and things like that. And I think like being in a space that permits that and sort of being able to have your children and have your social life and have family and community, super important. And yeah, I think for people who are thinking about having children, I'd say, yeah, it's just like, and I think we struggled a bit at the beginning for a lot of reasons like COVID and all that. And I think it's gotten, 1,000 times better. Yeah, I'd say people, I think it's hard to have a child in isolation, and raise a child in isolation.
For sure. And I think that network of folks, that community also helps with your child's social skills as well, right? Your child being able to
Mm-hmm.
interact with other folks and things. Well, Karthik, thank you so much for talking with us today and sharing your story. It's really, really awesome talking to you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Parenthood Bites. We hope you found our episode informative and entertaining. If you're a parent in the tech world or know someone who is, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at chow@parenthoodbites.co, and we'll be thrilled to add your experiences to our interviews. That's chow, CHIAO, @parenthoodbites.co. And to our potential sponsors out there, if you're a business or know of one that would like to support and partner with our podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also reach us at chow@parenthoodbites.co. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Until next time, take care and stay curious.